How does the news about the college football playoff vote not happening? And how does it relate to WVU? Stay tuned, and I'll tell you. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Kurtz's Corner, your go-to college sports channel with a heavy dose of West Virginia Mountaineers. Before I get into today's show, I want to give a shout out to one of my subscribers, Official YB Comedy. I appreciate your support. And for those who haven't yet, I ask you to please subscribe also. And also, please hit that like button if you like my content, and share Kurtz's Corner with your friends. Let them know about me, because I'm still new to the game and just trying to grow this family and this channel. The topic of the day, again, is conference realignment. News came out yesterday. Most of it came from Mr. John Kurtz, and I'll share the YouTube video from him in the description box. The topics involve the Big 12, and they involve college football playoff expansion, which is the biggest topic I want to talk about. The College Football Playoff Expansion Committee, which West Virginia's President Gordon Gee sits on, was supposed to meet next week on the 28th to vote for a 12-team playoff. That has now been canceled. They're not going to vote on that now. Apparently there are some who no longer want to go that route, at least not now. Apparently there are some who want to go to an 8-team playoff model versus a 12-team model. They don't have unanimous buy-in on the 8-team playoff model. Apparently, word has it that the group of 5 conferences would not be happy with a 8-team playoff model that does not include automatic bids for conference champions. And the Notre Dame and the SEC do not want an 8-team model that has automatic bids. And obviously we know that why that would be. The SEC wants to have as many teams in that playoff as possible. They basically want to dominate it. I can't say that I blame them. Sankey's got to do what's best for his conference. I don't fault him for that. Some people's eye, the SEC is kind of the bully of all the conferences. It doesn't help that image. But at the end of the day, it's business, and he's got to do what's best for his conference. And if an 18 playoff model with no automatic bids is best for his conference, then that's what him and his institution presidents and ADs will fight for. That's their job. That's why they get paid. That's what they get paid to do. The same with Notre Dame. As long as they're an independent, if they want to remain independent, it wouldn't benefit Notre Dame to have conference champions get automatic bids, because obviously them not being in a conference could knock them out of the playoffs potentially every year. So where does West Virginia fall into this? Well, if you saw my short video yesterday, I talked about the hint that was dropped by Tony Kurtz on his podcast the other day that about West Virginia possibly getting an ACC. He made a statement along the lines of good things come in time, like wine. So be patient. And that tells me that there is some talk going on behind the scenes. And another thing to think about that also involves the college football playoff expansion is Gordon Gee, their president, who I mentioned earlier, is on that board. He has come out openly and stated he would not vote for a 12-team playoff right now because of all the instability in college football. So if you read between the lines there, I think Gordon Gee, if West Virginia is thinking about joining a conference or changing conferences, maybe he wants to wait to see for that to happen before he makes a decision on voting for the college football playoff. Maybe that's the instability he's speaking of, is the fact that West Virginia themselves are looking to move. And if that's the case, then yeah, he's right. There is instability. And I'm sure he knows what's going on behind the scenes. I'm sure he's talking to other university presidents, conference commissioners, and he probably has an idea of if there's other teams from the Big 12 that are looking to move. He probably knows that. We all know Kansas isn't happy with the current situation. They're probably looking to get out. So as long as there's all this instability and all this rumblings out there about teams leaving conferences, and then I don't know that we'll see the 12-team playoff until all of that gets settled, and who knows if and when that'll even happen. As far as my personal opinion on the playoff expansion, I'd like to see it expand. I'd like to see the 12-team model eventually, but I don't know if you jump from a 14-team model to a 12-team model right off the bat, man. That's a big change. Would it be better to go to 8 for a few years and then change and then see how that works and then go to 12? I don't know. I don't think that the group of 5 conferences should get automatic bids. I think you should take the top couple of teams from the group of 5 conferences and give them out and put them in, but not necessarily every group of 5 champion. I don't know that every group of 5 champion, and I know this might sound bad to say, but I don't know that you can. Let's just pick on little West Virginia's in-state counterpart, Marshall. Let's just say, for example, that Marshall wins the Conference USA championship. Does Marshall really deserve to be in the college football playoff with Alabama and Ohio State and Clemson and Oklahoma and all these other schools? Probably not. And I don't mean that to belittle Marshall. I root for Marshall when they're not playing West Virginia. I do. I want them to do well, but you can't put, they're not on the same level, and I don't think it's prudent to put them in the same college football playoff as them. But I do think if somebody like a Cincinnati or who's in a group of 5 now, if the 12-team playoff were today and Cincinnati wins the American Conference, then they should get in if they finish undefeated. They should. You just got to take the best teams that are out there from the group of 5, and more than likely those are going to be your conference champions. It may not be the case every year. I mean, you might take 2 American teams, or there are 2 group of 5 conferences that are above and beyond the others, like the American and the Mountain West. Do those 2 conference champions get an automatic bid? I could probably live with that, but I don't think every group of 5 conference should get an automatic bid. That's just my thoughts on it. You may feel differently. You may think that the smaller conferences deserve a seat at the table, and that's fine. Let me know in the comment box, please, if you think that way. I'd be glad to hear your opinion on that. Just for watching, I'm giving you a free subscription to Kuz's Corner. All you gotta do is hit that red subscribe button underneath the video. Remember, it's free, so don't miss out. But it's interesting to know that Gordon Gee, I'm sure he knows some things, and I'm curious to know. I'd be curious, and I'm sure we'll never know this, but this is all conjecture and opinion. But how much does he know, and is everything he's doing or not doing as far as voting for the playoff for the betterment of West Virginia because he wants to get them in a better seat? Is he using it as leverage? If the ACC wants an expanded playoff, does he go to the ACC and say, all right, you want an expanded playoff? Then you give West Virginia a seat at the table in the ACC, and I'll vote for your playoff. Maybe. And if he is, good deal. I'm glad he's the guy at the head of the table for West Virginia. That's who we want. I don't know that he's doing that. I'm not saying he is, but it's very interesting to know that he could potentially hold those cards. Now, I don't think Gordon Gee's the only one against it. Some of the Pac-12 has come out and said they have doubts about it. I think we will eventually get to the 12-team playoff, but I think there's a lot of negotiation and a lot of political maneuvering going on behind the scenes to try to improve situations for individual conferences. And if you're a team and don't even know what conference you're going to be in right now, then how are you going to, you don't want to, if you're Gordon Gee, you don't want to side with the Big 12 conference and go with, say, okay, because each conference has a representative on this committee, and he's the one for the Big 12. He don't want to say, okay, Big 12, what do you want me to vote? How do you want me to vote? Well, if they say no, but the ACC might feel differently. You don't want to make the ACC conference presidents mad, or the conference commissioner mad if you might get in. I mean, if you're on the doorstep of getting in the conference, do you want to, as the saying goes, bite your nose off, spite your face, make them mad, and then they change their mind and don't let you in? He's in an interesting position right now, I think. Or if the ACC and Big 12 differ on the issue, who does he side with? Does he side with the Big 12 or the ACC? If assuming that the ACC's wanting them. So this is all interesting stuff. It's a lot to think about. Will us average Joes out here that we'll probably never know the answer as to truly what motivates everybody to make the decisions they make. At the end of the day, it all comes down to the almighty dollar. and what's best for each individual university, and in some cases each conference if you're the commissioners. So it's going to be interesting to see how the cookie crumbles on this. Some other things to note that Mr. John Kurtz talked about. Texas and Oklahoma apparently are wanting to pay their exit. They're wanting to get out early and pay their exit fees in 2 payments, in installments. And the Big 12 and Bob Bowlesby are basically saying, not going to happen. And they're standing firm on it apparently. Because what could happen is if they agree to that, and say Texas and Oklahoma pay, I think right now they're saying that if they left now it'd be like $150 million. Say they pay half of that now. All right, Big 12 agrees to let them out. Well, they pay half, they get out. Well, then all of a sudden, they're already in the SEC. When it comes time to pay that second payment, they're going to lawyer up and say, okay, we're not giving you that second payment. We're going to fight you in court. Big 12 might not ever get their money, and if they do, they might only get a portion of it. So it's in the Big 12's best interest to stand firm and do what they're doing and hold Texas and Oklahoma's feet to the fire and try to make them pay the full exit fee. Now, it may come down to the fact that it's better just to let them go and pay, and it's all part of the negotiation, I think. They're probably going to end up negotiating a buyout that is less than the full amount, but half is probably not the way to go. So I don't fault Bob Bowlesby for that at all. I'm actually applaud him for standing firm and doing what's best for the conference. He's got to look out for the conference and the future members that are coming in and the ones that are probably going to stay or likely stay. He can't look out for the best interest of Texas and Oklahoma right now. That doesn't help him at all, and it doesn't help the other 8 and incoming 4 members either. So he's doing the right thing, in my opinion, by doing that. Personally, I'm a little bit torn on my opinion on it, because if Bob Bowlesby and the Big 12 hold Texas and Oklahoma's feet to the fire too much, and West Virginia then decides to leave and go to the ACC, then they're probably going to get their feet held to the fire also. So, because they're going to be held to the same standard. So West Virginia's probably waiting to see what happens with this whole Texas and Oklahoma thing, and then they'll go to Bowlesby and the Big 12 and say, okay, look, here's the deal you cut for Texas and Oklahoma. We want the same deal. So then their buyout will get less. So for the Big 12's sake, Bowlesby needs to do what's best for them, and I want them. Even if West Virginia leaves the Big 12, I have a lot of respect for the Big 12. I like the Big 12, and even if West Virginia stays in the Big 12, the way it's going to be constituted with the new 4 teams, I'm content with that. I just want the geographic rivals and stuff that come with the ACC, so I'm a little selfish in that regard. But on the field, I'm okay either way. I just want it to turn out whatever's best for West Virginia. But if Texas and Oklahoma and they have to stay the whole 3 years, then West Virginia's probably going to stay the whole 3 years too, fulfill their commitment through the current granted rights deal, and then they can go to the ACC. So I think that's why nothing's been announced yet, in my opinion. So I think once all this buyout stuff gets negotiated, I don't see them waiting 3 years, Texas and Oklahoma, to be honest, because they're not going to want to hang out and be lame ducks, so to speak, for the next 3 years. I don't think it's in their best interest, and I don't think it's in the conference's best interest or the SEC's best interest. Everybody needs to move ahead and move forward. But at the same time, the Big 12 can't afford to let $150 million go down the drain either. That's money they need and their current members need. So, and the incoming members potentially, if they're included in the deal, which I don't think nobody knows the answer to that yet. But West Virginia's probably just waiting. They're sitting back and waiting. Here's my gut feeling, okay? My gut feeling is they've already got a deal worked out to go to the ACC, okay? They're just waiting on everything to settle, see what happens with Texas and Oklahoma, then they'll make an announcement. That's what I think. That's my gut. I don't have any sources. Just listen to what Tony Cariti's saying, the way everything's lining up. You got Cariti saying to be patient. Things are going on behind the scenes. You got Gordon Gee saying no college football playoff expansion because things are too chaotic right now. You got Kansas openly wanting to leave the conference. So that tells you that, I'm sure Kansas is probably not the only one who feels that way. They're probably just the only one open about it, right? And the way Gordon Gee and Shane Lyons handle things, they're extremely high integrity guys, in my opinion, and they're going to try to do things the right way, but yet also do it in the best interest of West Virginia. So I think we just need to, as fans, let's just be patient, let it all play out. West Virginia is going to land on their feet one way or the other. Probably be in the ACC. If not, it'll be in this new Big 12, which is not going to be a bad conference at all. I think they're going to be a better conference than than the Pac-12, especially and maybe potentially even the ACC down the road. To be honest, that's a possibility. So we'll see where it all lands. It's a lot to lot to unpack. It's a lot of stuff going on. I'm sure there'll be more news to break today, probably maybe even while I'm talking right now. West Virginia is definitely going to be impacted by all this. Yeah, I think this college football expansion vote stuff, or vote or no vote, if you want to call it that, is part of the equation. I think there's probably some conferences and some schools trying to keep the SEC from getting what they want. But at the end of the day, I think most schools are going to do what's best for their school. I mean, most presidents are going to do what's best for their school, and that's what they should do. That's who pays their salary, right? But, and look, I have no fault with the SEC. The SEC is doing what the SEC is supposed to do. If they're the one with the money and the power, as long as they didn't cheat to get there, I have no issue with it. It's capitalism, man. They have to do what's best for them, and the other conferences have to do what's best for them. And at the end of the day, it'll all unfold. There'll be negotiations. There'll be votes. That's what these committees are for. Is to hash out all the differences, negotiate, talk to one another, see what fits everybody, come to a compromise, and eventually they'll vote. And I think eventually we'll get to a 12-team model, maybe an 8-team model. I don't know. I'm okay with either one. Either one's better than what we have now. But I still think I'd like to see 12. I think 12 would be exciting as a fan, and it gives the teams like the Cincinnatis, who might get overlooked a lot of times, gives them a shot at the big dogs like the Alabamas and stuff, to let them prove themselves. And we've seen in the past that it can happen. Boise State, TCU, back when they were a non-Power 5 school, they both won BCS bowl games. So we've seen it happen, and it could happen again. And if it's in a playoff format where it's one and done for a national championship, it'd be football's version of March Madness, basically. And I think it would be very exciting. So I'd like to see it. But maybe they need to do it in baby steps and not jump into the water over their head all at once. Listen, I hope you like my content. I know I kind of rambled today, but I just wanted to get this off my chest and kind of just throw it out there to my viewers and let you guys chime in on what you think. Please comment. Please like my video if you do like my content, and please subscribe and ask your friends to check me out and subscribe as well. And especially if they're a Mountaineer fan and a college football fan, I think they'll appreciate the content. And until the next video, peace out.